Tonight we continue with the later works of Orson Welles.
A rich, full-bodied wine, sensibly priced at $1 a jug. And now for a little magic, I will make this jug disappear.
Professor Blowhard, remember me?
Indeed I do. Class, this is Stubby K.
No, I'm Jay Sherman. I came here for guidance.
Jay, you weren't meant to create. You were meant to tear apart.
I was?
You were born to nitpick what others poured their hearts and souls into.
I shall!
Be a truth teller!
I will, you pompous windbag!
Learn from this man, class. We should all be such independent thinkers.
Be an independent thinker.
Roll the next clip.
That was perfect.
Perfect. Mr. Wood, do you know anything about the art of film production?
Well, I like to think so.
That cardboard headstone tipped over. This graveyard is obviously phony.
Nobody will ever notice that. Filmmaking is not about the tiny details. It's about the big picture.
The big picture?
Yes.
Then how about when the policeman arrived in daylight, but now it's suddenly night?
What do you know? Haven't you heard of suspension of disbelief?
So there's the problem that happens with suspension of disbelief. The key words that were being missed there is this is obviously phony. That's what we're running into when we're storytellers, is we have to avoid some of the obvious ideas that we are creating a story. So what the trick is that the true term is the willing suspension of disbelief. This is the idea the audience is willing to forget they're watching a film. But it only happens because the visual storyteller has done their job well enough to pull them in. So in the episode about Ed Wood, Ed felt that an audience would automatically suspend disbelief because they were watching a film. But through the eyes of Tim Burton, we can actually visually see this is rarely the case. With the critic, though, it's even harder to do because of their background and knowledge. When a critic looks at a film, television show, or webcast, they're thinking about the puppet strings that the filmmakers hold. They are analyzing how well the filmmaker presents that audience with the believable reality. But the critical eye is really not looking to tear everything apart. This is why this is such a joke with the film The Critic and It Stinks, is because we have to accept something when it comes to critique and when it comes to criticism. Often with criticism, we talk about more of what works than what doesn't work. So what we have to do, though, for this section of the paper is we actually have to talk about what worked for the believable realities of the story that you are wanting to present to your classmates in your final video. So we're looking at it from a point of view of physical believable reality for the majority of this section of the paper. It can be something simple as a makeup effect. Now, I'm showing here Marlon Brando from The Godfather because makeup effects actually can be simple, but yet make a dramatic enough change to where you buy into the character a bit more. For something like a fantasy comedy like Men in Black, you needed something recognizable in terms of weaponry, what's going on with it. So they create a believable reality to where, yes, these are futuristic looking or these are alien looking, but the size and the dimension indicate just what kind of firepower they need for the type of aliens they encounter. Now, sometimes we do need to go into the fantastical, and we are going to build items that would not normally be seen, but we're only going to build just enough to create that convincing reality. So physical puppets were made for Gremlins to allow for interaction between the effect and the actors to give that believable reality. Now, one interesting thing that happens with the reality of locations and settings is sometimes you actually have to go out and find a physical setting, something that really does match what's going on. I have this here because for the movie Kingsman that's supposed to take place around a tailor shop, they actually did hunt down a very popular tailor shop called Huntsman on the right. Yes, this is me in front of it, showing that basically, yeah, they went to a physical, actual tailor to shoot this, but they only used the exterior. This was their way of drawing you in so that when they went to the interior, they built out certain sets. By giving us that combination of a physical locale and a set, we were able to suspend our disbelief a little bit more of the events going on. But now let's take a look again at that lighting situation, because for the very last part of the paper, we're going to be talking about non-physical ideas. So coming back into here, you can see that this is a lighting plot, and there are actually different ways that they made this set look like it was a bright and sunny day. So what did they do with that kind of thing? This is something you can talk about with non-physical ideas. The idea basically that maybe they did something unique with the camera, with camera moves, or something that made it more of a personal point of view when it came to telling the story. What kind of things did they do with casting? What kind of cast did they bring in? How diverse were the characters themselves so that you could buy into the idea that everyone was not just one-dimensional? What did they do unique with effects, maybe? Here we have a green screen shot from the Grand Budapest Hotel, but yet it is actually a miniature in front of a green screen. So they use that combination of practical effect along with a visual effect. Sometimes it can even be something as simple as just giving us a combination. This is a point of view shot with a heads-up display as we are plummeting to the earth. So yes, a POV shot would have been good for a little bit of an effect, but by adding that little bit of graphics and adding to the reality of the impending doom, you bring the audience in a little bit further. So we have to think about the idea that that willing suspension of disbelief that we're talking about for this section comes from all of it. It comes from the idea that we're meshing both the physical and the non-physical into the idea of the fact that we are pulling an audience into the story.